Member States' commitments were embodied in the resolution adopted at the recent World Health Assembly. I urge you to offer all your support.
Illness.
Frustration.
Shocking.
A fundamental human right.
Dignity. It has to be dignity.
Leaving no one behind.
If you cannot ensure a good quality of care at the healthcare facility, where else?
The resolution is approved.
Transformation.
Cornerstone.
It's a fundamental building block.
Compassion.
Hope.
Life.
Healing. Indispensable respect.
It's the future.
It should be something so basic and so integrated in our healthcare facilities.
And that's a social justice issue for populations across the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage United Nations Office for Partnerships Executive Director, Robert Skinner.
Good afternoon, everyone. What an amazing program we're having here at Concordia this afternoon. Really incredible series of speakers and participants. And it's also great to see my boss up there on the video for a second. And it's my honor to introduce today's discussion on water, sanitation, and hygiene at the 2019 Concordia Summit. First Ladies leading on WASH, which of course includes, for example, healthcare facilities and other aspects of water and sanitation. And as most of you likely know, the United Nations is convening an important General Assembly session starting this afternoon, actually, which is the first time the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, are being reviewed at the head of state level since they were adopted in 2015. And so this is a particularly timely topic. At the UN Office for Partnerships, our primary objective is to further the UN's 2030 agenda by acting as the gateway for partnerships for the SDGs. And this includes collaboration between national governments, the traditional national government and member states of the United Nations, but also the private sector, local governments, civil society, academia, and philanthropy. The SDGs are interrelated, interdependent, and mutual reinforcing. And that's particularly true of SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. Clean water and sanitation is indispensable to the achievement of all of the other SDGs. And we need an all-of-society engagement and partnerships to bring about the large-scale transformational change to address the challenge of Goal 6. And one way to drive that is through Goal 17, which is partnerships for the goals. I feel quite lucky in the Office for Partnerships to have what I consider kind of my own goal on partnerships. And I know that our two conversationalists today are firm believers in the power of partnerships. In fact, one of them is her country's national ambassador for Goal 17, and I can assure you that she is firmly committed to this role, as I've had the pleasure to meet with her on several occasions over the last year and actually participated in a discussion with her at the Concordia Americas Summit in Bogota in May. I've seen her true passion and commitment to the SDGs, and particularly to partnerships for achieving them. So please join me in welcoming this afternoon's speakers, the First Lady of Colombia, Her Excellency, Mrs. María Juliana Ruiz Sandoval, in conversation with the Senior Fellow at Harvard University's Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs, a former Undersecretary of State for Global Affairs, and a member of the Concordia Leadership Council, Ambassador Paula Dobriansky. Thank you, and I enjoy what promises to be an inspiring discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Good afternoon, everyone. And we are so delighted that you are here today at Concordia. And the first order of business is a hearty congratulations to Madam First Lady. And you know why? Because, as you saw, Secretary-General António Guterres gave a call to action last year. And what the call to action was that WASH, which is water, sanitation, hygiene, in healthcare facilities, needs to be addressed. And this was because the WHO and UNICEF came together. There was a report that said over 40% of deaths worldwide are attributable to a lack of water, unpurified water. It's just problematic and poor hygiene. And you stepped forward. The First Lady, only just recently, just a few months back at the Pan American Health Organization, she gave her own call to action. She came forward and she said, First Ladies around the world, let's unite and let's try to really tackle these issues. Why did you do it, Madam?
Well,
Madam First Lady, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Paula. Good afternoon to everyone. It was actually, I think, a response to a natural call that we have, and is that First Ladies have this natural instinct to impact in a social matter. And what I do believe is that following also that role of advocacy and convening, there was a way that we can use for one specific target. And I decided to do it for WASH in a global perspective because of personal interest on a specific program in Colombia.
Well, tell us about that program in Colombia and how it's connected. We heard Robert describe the public-private partnerships and how cross-partnerships and cross-sectoral partnerships matter. Connect some of the dots here. What motivated you?
Well, that was true. I had the honor to be nominated as a Goodwill Ambassador for SDG 17. SDG 17 makes a specific call to partnerships and to encourage all this cooperative and collaborative work. And I do believe that is something that talks directly to First Ladies. Those are the main things we can do. So our main goal in Colombia, at least from my role, was to target malnutrition. And, but then I thought, how can water and sanitation be linked to it? And the fact was that water and access to water is one of the basic needs that have to be fulfilled when you're speaking about nutrition. So I also had the opportunity to be involved at a very high-level commission in Colombia, which is the Inter-Sectoral Commission for Food Security, led by the Ministry of Health, who's here, who invited me to be part of it so we can raise up the conversation and make the different sectors, not only from the government, but from then, inviting private sector, inviting international organizations to be part of a specific target. And so that's the way how a very specific topic on water and sanitation comes up, tackling something as important as nutrition in Colombia.
You also have shared some of the statistics and how things have changed over the last year. Give us some of the examples, the specific examples of how your work, the Commission's work, the plan that you've put forward has made a difference, particularly in Northern Colombia.
Definitely. Actually, something that was, I believe, probably the starting point of it was that we were able to lead and launch the National Alliance on Nutrition, that brought together private sector, public sector, academy, different institutions from the government, and international cooperation to be part of this National Alliance in Nutrition. And even from that commission's perspective and from international perspective, we started making like a difference in the way we call for different partners to be part of this project. We identified a region, a couple of regions in the country. There's one that some of the ones who are here may know, is called La Guajira in the northern coast of Colombia, that has a very dramatic issue with water, access to water, but at the same time had high levels of deaths due to malnutrition. And we said, let's link these two and try to find out how we can impact, through improving water access, this malnutrition statistics in that department. And something that was very nice is that the Ministry of Household came with a very nice and efficient program on water and how to bring water to that region. And we brought that to the Commission. And now we have a multilateral bank, international cooperation, private sector and public sector impacting statistics, and which would tell us we're going on the right track. And is that for this past year, we decreased the deaths due to malnutrition in that region in 60%. And it's more or less the target that they have on that specific spot to increase the access to water. The fact is that especially in the rural area of that region, the access to water comes up to 4%, and the goal is to raise it up to 70%. This last year, we were able to raise it up to 11%. So we consider that 4 to 11% in access to water is also reflected on that decreasing of number of deaths due to malnutrition. Now, that was not the only thing that was done. Of course, we had to add a couple of different shares from different institutions on it. We launched a program of specific like outreach and access and services units that go and look for the kids who are in risk of malnutrition. And we're trying to tackle specifically two things, which are the deaths due to malnutrition and acute malnutrition and malnutrition prevalence. And those numbers are being changed due to the partnership and the follow-up from my initiative of just trying to seat everybody on the table. And it's not saying, hey, from now on you have to do this. It's identifying what are they doing right now and how can that impact a specific target. It happened, and there's a very successful story that I like to share. And it happened with a company that is mainly related to industrial products. So they said, well, nutrition is not definitely our issue, but how can we help? And then we found out they're doing a great job on producing a component that can be water soluble to purify water. Now, that may not change access to water itself, but that is an immediate action we can take to bring communities drinkable water.
No, absolutely, and that's really key. And in fact, when the Secretary General made his broad appeal, it's not only about water, it's also about sanitation and hygiene. And there are different components of it. And I think what you've talked about and certainly have demonstrated is the importance of how there are these kind of cross-sectoral relationships here, how many of these issues are interrelated. I have to ask you, what's the kind of advice you can give to other First Ladies in this? You know, you made that vigorous call to action. And by the way, it was picked up in other regions. In fact, a number of colleagues and compatriots in Africa saw this and were motivated. So what is your advice to them at this time?
Well, I would say that the first thing is that we need to identify what has been going on in our countries, try to organize the programs and try to identify what and which is the target. So that will help us identify from our end and from the private sector end and the public sector end, how are they impacting those specific goals. So I think that was probably would help us, and the Ministry of Health will correct me, but I think that was the fact. We said, okay, we have this Inter-Sectoral Commission. Now, from the government's perspective, we need to know what is going on. So we sat the Ministry of Commerce, we sat the Ministry of Household, we sat the different ministries, even the Ministry of Commerce, which was also kind of a funny story. While we were heading to the meeting, he said, I think I'm not that sure why am I being part of this commission. I'm the Ministry of Commerce. This is food related. After a few moments and sharing some information, he said, oh wait, actually, I am running a program that hits directly food production. So from there, we started saying, okay, now what happens if we can start researching on what's the micronutrients components on those programs? Which are the specific crops you're willing to promote to see if those will impact as well regional nutrition numbers. So I do believe that we first need to know what is going on. Second, try to organize it. And then the third thing is understand the impact that you can cause when you work on a collaborative and a partnership perspective. There are things that are being done and things that can be done just by organizing your share. It's not making everybody do what they're not doing, just thinking what from what they're doing can impact one specific goal. And I said again, I think that's the call for the First Ladies, and is if we have a few roles, let's take advantage of it. That's why I saw on SDG 17 a great opportunity to make a call for partnerships. We do have that power of advocacy and convenience, and as I said before, so let's make things happen, and let's use our voice just to visibilize what we have been doing on our countries, and how we can also bring together different organizations.
Well, you deserve very much to be congratulated, as I said, not only because you stepped up and responded to Secretary Guterres' call to action, and I might add, by the way, if I may, your husband, as president of Colombia, Iván Duque, also actually used Concordia as a base to make an appeal. But it was you who marched forward, got this commission, the Minister of Health, and moved this issue forward in a cross-sectoral way that's going to really make a difference in Colombia. And to that, you really deserve a lot of credit. And if I could say, she deserves double applause because she also took on the SDG goal, 17. So, I have one last question for you. So here you have a tremendous, speaking of cross-section, tremendous audience. You have business, you have journalists, you have former government, present government officials, just a real mix, NGOs. So now tell us, what's your next step and what do you want them to know? How are you going to carry this forward?
Well, first thing is I would make a call just to start changing our conversations. We need to speak in a positive way. We need to see what we're really doing. Of course, there are things that are probably not being done the right way, but we need to know which are those things. But we also need to know which are the things that we are doing well. And if they are not working the way we want them to work, how we can improve. So that for me would be an essential matter, and is let's change our conversations. Let's start talking about the things we are doing and the ones we're doing well. Because that will also encourage everybody to think in a positive way and realize the things that are happening. We do have challenges. It's hard to see how many things haven't grown the way we expect them to grow, how many things haven't changed the way we want them to change, but there are things that have been done. And we need to realize that I have a saying is, let's make viral the positive communication. So that will be a call also for First Ladies, because now that I'm at this role, I understand how we can impact in a positive way those conversations.
Well, I think indeed you've done that today, and congratulations to you. And you know what? Next year, we're all going to want to hear what happened further with your call. So thank you again. Please join me in thanking Madam First Lady.